Greetings, fellow Earthlings. Welcome to another episode of And Another Thing with Dave. Seeking the truth, exposing the lies. Remember, together, we are unstoppable. Keep on digging.
I want to pause there and talk about
Yes,
that
please.
briefly. I think that capitalism or businesses or corporations, if you will, do not have a conscience. So the purpose of the corporation, of the business, of capitalism is to make and maximize profit. It is not to help the community. It is not to, help someone who's fallen. It is not to prop up people who like need stuff. It is only there to maximize profit. The only reason why a company would, well, I'm sure they will, I won't say that kind of like stark language, but typically the reason that a company would choose to do something that would be more community minded is because it's run by humans, and sometimes those humans have some leeway in how they run that business, so it's not an ultra capitalistic, just like, you know unethical like profit machine, which how a lot of corporations are run. However, eventually those businesses that are ultra capitalist in a capitalist system will outcompete those soft fuzzy ones that aren't like producing for their shareholders as much. So at the end of the day, the CEOs who become more and more and more and more cutthroat and maximize profit, they rise to the top and they make the most money and they become the ones that get hired and paid the most. So at the end of the day, capitalism does not have a conscience. People do. So if we want to have a society where the downtrodden are lifted up, then we need to move away from capitalism.
Well, Bjorn, companies are like they are people now. You know what I'm saying? Like they said it. They like
Right.
you know what I mean they're so like what do we do with that? So
Well,
That's kind of what I was describing earlier too. Was just this Ouroboros of capitalist interests over the interest of people. When they have all the power in society, as they do by virtue of capitalism, they get to set the rules as they see fit. And if profit, I mean, not only Bjorn said something that like their interest is profit, right? But not only just through virtue of being a corporation, but also legally, right? We have laws set in place.
Fiduciary
where these corporations-
responsibility.
Exactly. Thank you.
Look,
It's a law.
okay, Bjorn, you had me the majority of the time. The thing is, okay, first, corporations, they're not. There was never an agreement that they were supposed to be like equitable to the community, right? So there was never like the fact that they're just out for profit and growth. That's them functioning as it was designed. And I'm not saying it's good or bad. My personal opinion is I don't think it is a positive for society. However, they're functioning in the way that they're designed. And then, like you were saying, if a CEO or like a leader or like a director of that corporation is like, hey, look, I realize that my surroundings would benefit from engaging in these sort of social, sort of altruistic things where you're kind of building or divesting equity back to your community. The moment you start doing that, the other corporations, then the ones who are just fucking focused purely on profit, you now have a moment to expose that corporation to either a pure competition or be their shareholders going, they're not as profitable as they used to be because you're no longer just purely profit focused. Then they could like short the company, and then the company by that shorting act will lose like trust, and then that company will just be fucking crushed. So it's because it's so competitive, you have to kind of stay in that because there's this momentum that's created. So like that's where I'll put a pin there. I think it wraps that up a little bit.
It's even sick. I'm sorry. Go ahead. I just
Dave.
wanted to agree with you and add on. But yeah, so it's even sicker than that, right? Because people play on that on the short. You've got billionaires like gazillionaires that just play that and can tank a company if they set their mind to it, right? And so they look like vampires for a successful company without a hardcore infrastructure or whatever, without good lawyers. I don't know what they look for, but it happens all the time. It's the corporate hostile takeover. where the one
corporations-
company doesn't want to sell at all, but they're forced out of business. It's like what that movie Wall Street was, based on.
Yeah, the corporations aren't, like you said, they're shorting. There's a good function of shorting, because to take a company public, you can generate a lot of capital up front without having a physical product. So shorting does have a use where you can like ensure that there's like downward pressure on corporate companies that haven't produced anything, but they're generating more and more input from investors, right? Stock market is a big negative on the whole capitalist system in general, but corporations being these people, like that conversation comes up quite a bit where they're like, oh, corporations are seen as like individuals, or like, people say, people. They're, what they are is like a separate entity in itself. A corporation, there's like ownership, but it's more like sort of a caretaker. A corporation is separate in its liability, and that allows a way for individuals to push risk and expand without personal liability. And you could see some of the flaws there. However, not people in itself, but more just separate entity in itself. And if like, for example, how people celebrated 45 because he was bankrupt 6 times and then came back.
I think when they say individuals, I think they're it's more referring to like the ruling in Citizens United that grant them individuality when it comes to like campaign donations and stuff. Not necessarily
the rights of
we
a
think
person.
corporations are people.
Yes.
This is like a thing in the United States that is like is a
the
very
rights
big
of a
problem.
person.
Right. So they have the same rights as us. So they can donate to political campaigns without it being recognized as like a conflict of interest.
Yeah.
Right.
There's no maximum. There's no maximum limit.
Not anymore. After Citizens United, it's basically unlimited. Right. We legalized bribery.
That's crazy.
Yes, sir.
What could go wrong?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah,
What
through
could go wrong?
political action committees, through PACs.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Corporations are people too.
Somebody was talking about Obama being socialist, so I found a clip here. I won't play it because I don't think we're supposed to play pre-recorded stuff. But this is Univision News. Obama, in his own words, saying my policies were more moderate Republican than socialist. Univision News on YouTube from December 4th, 2012.
So let's we got
how
a bunch of messages. Keep building. Sorry guys, we got messages we got to get to. These are some from what's up?
I don't want to interrupt. And I'm just throwing something out there. You guys can just toss it in the wind. But if we punch through a couple of these, and if we all have something to say, if we wrote it down and came back, so we could punch again.
Yeah, we could totally do that. Yeah, if anybody has anything, make sure. Yeah, we're just gonna get through a couple of these. And guys, I also want to make sure that everybody, that everybody gets we respond to all of our listeners with equal. Right. I don't want to be like, oh yeah, we'll short this guy and then go to the next person. So I mean, I just want to make sure everybody gets the opportunity and to have their questions answered or have a response. But yeah, that's a good idea. So anybody who has anything, we're gonna go through a couple of these. We will comment on some of your questions here. But we're gonna blow through a couple. And guys, if you guys have anything you'd like to respond to, just make a mental note or a physical note, whatever is easier for you guys. We're gonna keep going here because I don't want to run too far behind. Let's go with Spanish Define here.
Communism does not work unless everybody agrees upon communism. Communism is also very much so genocidal and controlling, totalitarian. Those kinds of things that us freedom-loving people do not like and would not wish to have. Some of us adamantly opposed to it, where we're willing to lay down our lives to not live in such a system.
So I know the temptation is to want to answer that. We'll come back to it. I promise. So Emmanuel, what's up?
I don't think it's possible to have a moneyless society because money is essentially a tool used to track goods and services and the consumption thereof. So if we're gonna have a moneyless society, we're going to need to find ways to keep track of goods and services and where they go, who's consuming them. That way we can basically make the economy work and have people survive. Because you need to be able to know where food is going and stuff like that, and who needs the food.
Yep.
So like if we didn't have money, how would society decide who gets how much food and when? Because that's basically what money is used for. I use money to go buy food when I'm hungry, right? But if we don't have money anymore, how is society going to work after that? How are people going to acquire food or other goods and services? Is there going to be like a ticket system? Like we get 5 tickets a day, depending on how hungry you are, or how many people you know, or who's in your family. Like how is that going to work exactly? And if it's going to be, it's like some kind of ticketing system. It's essentially money in a way.
Can't wait then. Now.
I went over this a couple of weeks ago. It was something that was thought about by geniuses. It's like we can make robots, and robots would do everything, and we'll get to the point where we have AI. Well, the conclusion is that AI will either do two things: they'll discover that we are the problem and get rid of us humans, or in the second option, it'll do exactly as we intended to do, but inevitably that leads to making ourselves obsolete. So there you go.
All right, so I'm going to play 2 more, and because then we'll be pretty much caught up to at least 12.
I'm writing all these down, so why don't we just blow through them?
Yeah. Yeah, we can do that. All right, here we go. Does everyone? I mean, I want to make sure everybody is doing this. Everybody has like mental notes.
I wrote them all down.
Yes.
I had a notepad earlier, but
Awesome.
I feel like I didn't need it.
Get a pen and some paper. Go old school. Yes, write it down. Do your homework.
Yep. I got them written down for everybody.
All right, here we go. JP.
We have socialism for the rich and capitalism for the poor in the US. Besides that, the US Army is a type of socialist association. Some Native American communities were not communist at all. I suggest people read the latest book of David Rangro, The Dawn of Everything.
So like companies are profit motivated because the institutions that invest in them are profit motivated. The institutions have to change, and then the businesses they'll more or less fall in line because that's where the money is going. So like what Bjorn said, capitalism doesn't have a conscience. I understand a point of view, and if an institution, like a financial institution that invests in companies, if that's built on strictly on a capitalist ideology or economic system, that institution will be profit motivated. But I still think institutions can have a paradigm shift where they can implement both free market capitalist ideas with like socialist elements, so long as they find ways to funnel money into sustaining communities and maintaining the basic needs of populations that are in need, as well as like in addition to like their profit motivated ventures, as investing in companies that have a high return on investment. I think both can exist so long as the people who run the institutions have a paradigm.
It sounds like you got cut off, Manuel. If you wanted to kind of elaborate or finish your, I don't know if you finished your thought there, but you got cut off. So before we jump back into the conversation, I'm glad make sure everybody has we'll kind of address these one by one. I just want to give a shout out to our listeners currently.
Please.
And that's Zenz, Lewis Fred, JP, Spanish Defiant, Miss Songbird, Sano, forgive me, brother. Sanaj, Suri, Surad, Mota, and Emmanuel Herschel, thank you guys for listening into the commentary table. We do this every Friday at 11:15 Eastern Standard Time, 8:15 Pacific Standard Time, and you guys can kind of figure out the rest in between there. But yeah, anyway, we're talking capitalism, socialism, communism, all the isms. So, weigh in. And actually, let's get to Emmanuel's. I think this might be a continuation of his last comment. So we're just going to play this, and then we'll get to it.
Yeah, so I got cut off on that last one. My last point was like, since the institutions are run by people, they have to change their mindset. An institution is profit motivated because the people in the institution are profit motivated. If they had socialistic tendencies, then the institution will find ways to spread money in socialistic ways, not just solely on profit motivated ideas. That's the point I was trying to make. So like the people running the institutions, they are the ones that have to change.
Yeah, but in purely unregulated capitalism, that system doesn't work out because that person gets outcompeted by the others who are playing the game more capitalistic. Sorry to cut you off there, Hogan.
No, you're good. I was gonna say, like, if anybody wanted to jump in on any of these comments here, please do. Did anybody have any they wanted to address specifically?
Sebastian, go for it, baby.
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot there. I know that someone mentioned, the totalitarian nature of communism. And honestly, look, I make this argument a lot. If anyone here has listened to any of my stuff before, when we measure like what we would describe as authoritarianism, because again, both of these things, totalitarianism and authoritarianism, are pejoratives to me. They don't mean nothing. They don't really mean anything but just merely insults and name throwing, because authority exists in every relationship that we have, right? So I don't know. To me, it's just kind of, yeah, it's kind of a weird projection that people do. And I'm not saying that the caller was saying, was projecting anything. It's just we're taught this stuff, right? Like the ruling class, the ruling ideas of a society are those of the ruling class. If they don't want us to think that their society is authoritarian or negative, they're going to project that upon us and make us believe that. They run the institutions that we're talking about. But like the idea that like somehow America is the pinnacle of freedom is laughable to me. We have the highest prison population per like 100,000 people per capita, or whatever metric you want to use to decide how many people exist in our prison systems here in America. We lose every single time with every metric. And the only way I can really calculate what is authoritarian and what isn't authoritarian is really the amount of people in a prison system, right? Because ultimately, there's two ways that we exert authority. That's through violence or through incarceration. So in my view, we live in the most authoritarian society. I know we like to project the feelings or the animosities of our country's rulers and most powerful people against. We like to lodge accusations that we've been taught to like feel towards other countries. But like honestly, we have the grossest disparities in freedom and wealth and power in this country.
Agreed.
Right.
Yeah, and to JP, I was going to say to JP's point, he mentioned that we have socialism for the rich, and I don't know if he said rugged individualism for the poor. I think that's the MLK quote. But like if you are a bank and you're an investor in the bank and your bank fails and the government deems your bank is too big to fail, they will bail you out. They will give you money to your bank account to make sure that your bank doesn't go under. But if you're like, a single mom, and you're like barely making it, they're not going to give you money, especially, or if you lose your job, there may not be a system depending on which state
Wow.
which state you're in, or if you get pregnant and maybe you have the baby. There may be no money for you out there to like stay home and like bond with your baby. No, we want you to like get back in the workforce as quickly as possible. And who cares if that baby has someone responsible taking care of them or anyone at all. So
But
That's a
like
great
Bjorn,
point.
I will
That
say
that
this.
reminds me of.
I'll say this.
Yeah, go
Bjorn,
ahead,
you
Ken.
say that, and that's like when you go like you look at the aspect of like UK and honestly Canada itself. Here in the States ourselves, like, don't give that we don't give a mom or either a dad a chance to bond with that child. It's just like up, pump that baby out and come back to work, you know. But in the UK, it's like no, sit out, have that time to be a family, you know. But we have never like our whole thing is like oh like there's an 80-year-old worker at Walmart and we think that's like commendable. It's only commendable because like the fact that they're working because they have to work in the States because they're not making money to like do the things they would like to do or at least have health insurance or whatever. And I don't think Walmart gives health insurance, but in the same sense, that's the way our culture is in the States. It's just like work, 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 work. And across the pond in our brothers and sisters up north, it's a little more respect to like that sort of aspect of the family itself. So like yeah, I would that's
yeah,
that's
and
what
Cannon, I'll channel some Andrew Yang here and say like in our society, in our capitalistic society, we do not value things that don't generate money. So, in our families, clearly like we value things differently than capitalism does. Like we all had a mom, or there's someone that birthed us. And I think all of us would probably agree that like a mom mothering or parents parenting is a very important job. But capitalistic society does not have any value, assigns a value of zero to the mom staying home with their kid. That because society is not going to pay her anything to stay home and take care of her child. And arguably, having a kid that's well taken care of, well fed, will produce a productive member of society, etc. So we maybe should be thinking about doing that, but we don't value that. Um, However, in capitalism, we only value the people who are out there plugging away, pulling the lever. So
That's a great point. I forget who it was, but there was a quote. Have you ever noticed we don't liberate countries that don't have oil as a resource, right? If your number one export's broccoli, we're not coming to liberate you, right? We're not. And I also wanted to just agree with what Bjorn said about people losing their homes, compromised living situations. Let's remember 2008 with Obama. He kicked 5 million people out of their homes and let the bankers keep their jobs and their bonuses. And there were Citibank actually sent him a letter before he was picked his cabinet, and there were 21 names on that letter. And he put all 21 names in his cabinet. So he basically did the bidding for Citibank. As soon as he got out of office, he went and made a speech for Citibank and got paid $400,000 for a 30-minute speech. So you can say bought and paid for right there. And then I'll close with the jail numbers. I didn't want to say this before I had the stats, but I thought we had more people just overall, not just per capita, but overall numbers. And it's true. 2,094,000 people in jail in the United States, 1,710,000 in China, and they have billions of people. We have 350 million.
But brother, like the whole point, the fact like the system when it comes to like our jail system itself, and we talk about in ad nauseam, the fact that like we have like prisons that are corporate like sort of like based.
Cannon, can you speak up because I'm having difficulty hearing you.
Apologies. I will get right on the mic. Is that better?
You're good. A little bit.
All right. what I'm just trying to say is like when you have like prisons that are like not federally run, and they're run like companies outside of it. That's why we have the rate of lot. Like I said,
Oh,
we
yeah.
talked about this
Recidivism.
nauseum.
Yeah.
Nauseum. We talked about this nauseum.
Well,
so that's that.
Look, it's just good
It's
business.
built for profit. There's no rehab, right? There's no rehab. You have some prisons are for profit, but even the ones that are state run, the prisoners are still making Levi's and Nikes and Old Spice deodorant for
Fighting
for-profit
fires.
companies, right? So, and fighting fires at $2 a day here in California, and that doesn't lead to a career path. That part is disgusting to me, right? First of all, pay a minimum wage. They're out there risking their life, and that should lead to an apprenticeship with the fire department, but it doesn't. Unreal.
Oh, that's
This is a lot.
brilliant. That's brilliant. That's
There's a
brilliant.
lot.
I like that.
There's a lot
idea.
of
The other part of that is that not only do we, not rehab them, we also like leave them, usually in a worse situation, but also we I lost my train of thought.
Yeah, well, in a for-profit society, when healthcare and jail are for-profit, then you want people to go to one of those places, the hospital or the jail.
Oh my God, that makes so much sense.
Well, the other thing I remembered my point. My point was that we remove them from the political landscape. We don't allow them to vote. So if you're a felon, you can't vote.
Absolutely.
So we're not only going to put you there, we're going to take your power away from society.
I had this conversation. I'm not joking. I literally had this conversation with my coworkers today. this very conversation.
Wow. What would you do? What would you do? You're a person, right? You're a human being, right? That's now been deemed not a human being, but you leave the prison system. Which look, you guys vote for your sheriffs and your fucking judges. Of course, like it's a beautiful for profit company. These private, I think they're absolute atrocities, but if you're thinking capitalist, like you vote for your sheriffs and your fucking judges, right? Then you fucking make for-profit human storage places for like minimal crimes that they get paid like so much money for, and then you dictate which laws by selecting your judge. This is the craziest thing. You guys select your judges and your sheriffs. You just stuff more people in there, and then like it's just the fact that you take away their voting right. So you take away their voting right, and then they have to, like, for whatever fucking reason, like, they have to, like, I'm an ex-con, right? So they're no longer a part of society. They can't vote. They're like, well, fuck this. Of course, what, like, you're a human being, and you want to, like, have the ability to curate your surroundings, we'll say, by that being making money. You're going to, again, have that, somebody said, recidivism. Yeah. And like it's just like because it's crazy. It's absolutely insane. It's almost like a foreign entity is like attacking you through this. But
yes.
The thing is, before we go on to like any other point, I just want to say one thing that I had written down here. People really need to grasp the idea. There was a comment about if there's no money, how will we value how much people get to eat and shit? Everybody, when it comes to the robots, at that point, everybody will have the availability of food. Like there's already enough food and houses to shelter and feed everybody in America anyway. Now, that's like you guys you're resource rich, intellectually rich, you have it all there. So there's not going to be a shortage. The thing is, when we think about money, we think about the stored value of labor. Money is this. It's the ability to direct these three things: labor, intellect, and resources. When you can perceive money as that, as opposed to this like $6 billion, right? Like $6 billion doesn't mean anything if you look at it like the ability to buy things. If you look at it from the perspective of like what it is, it's like, the ability to direct labor, right? Intellect, and resources. When you can perceive money as that, as opposed to this like $6 billion, right? Like $6 billion doesn't mean anything if you look at it like the ability to buy things. If you look at it from the perspective of like what it is, it's like the ability to direct labor, right? Intellect, and the resources surrounding it, we start to understand how you could have a society without the traditional fiat type of currency. We would be then, dare I go into NFTs, but we would then have a ways to sort of secure our intellectual property or what we offer back, and through that, you would then there would be no requirement for you then to have to support food, water, shelter, heat, electricity, whatever. It would just be a way to exchange, I don't know, whatever expression.
Yeah. So here's okay. I don't want to put people on the defensive to defend my vision of communism, right? Like, obviously, like, there's a lot of things being directed at a communist society, and obviously the topic of today is capitalism versus socialism, right? So I don't want to put
communism in there. I just want to kind of expand there.
Okay.
Communism in the title. So.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Okay, well then I guess it makes a little more sense. I just didn't want to subject everyone here who might be like a social democrat or a non-Marxian socialist, right? I didn't want to put them on the defensive to defend my ideas because I don't think that's fair to them.
Of course not. Of course not.
Yeah, but I mean, to kind of man, there's so much being said that I agree with wholeheartedly. My discussion about the prison system and prison reform, or even prison abolition, really revolved around the idea that number one, we've never really gotten off of our addiction to slavery. We still very much practice this, and we have because of these.
I totally agree.
Yeah.
Really.
And because of these profit motives, we make exceptions. I mean, literally, your life right now, you're literally playing like a dystopian kind of like a movie right now. You're in the Hunger Games, just waiting to be selected to go work in these dystopian slave factories that we call prisons. And we call them correctional facilities, but they do very little correcting. If we really cared about corrections and building a better society, we wouldn't treat prisoners the way we do. We wouldn't make everything punitive and so like biblical, right? Like we would aim to try to understand why these people did what they did, and like how we can prevent that from continuing. But because we live in a for-profit system that doesn't value human life, it's just a matter of isolating them and turning them into free labor.
Well, brother, I totally agree with you. Like, if there was a situation like we would be like when it comes to the prison system or the justice system itself, to where there's a person there that wants to learn a trade, and like we talked, like it was just said, like them going out there doing being firemen. But like, no, what if they were in like locked up and they're non-threatening, sort of like they bounce a check or whatever, they're non-threatening, and we decide like, hey, dude, do you want to be a nurse? Do you want to be a teacher? But like they go out in the world and sort of say like it doesn't have this stigma against them to do the things that we know we have. We don't have enough of them in our society right now. And like, it sounds crazy when I say it out loud. But I think I said it out loud, but I think we can do something with that. Like if it's
imagine that apprenticeship programs. Imagine that.
Yes.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of And Another Thing with Dave. If you're digging what I'm doing, picking up what I'm throwing down, please do share with friends and on social media. Until next time, keep on digging for the truth.